Most small business owners don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack clarity. My name is Adam Diaz, and I've spent nearly 2 decades building, selling, and advising small businesses. This platform exists for one reason: to bring clarity to chaos and insight to confusion. Only what moves your business forward. Here, we talk real strategy, real numbers, and real leadership decisions that actually make your business profitable. If you care about margin and not just the hype, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Margin. All right, welcome to the podcast. Dennis, thank you so much for being on.
You what? Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I met you, was about 2 years ago now.
2 years ago
We were in a networking group together.
business networking group.
And then my church hired your company, Artmill, to create a logo for our church.
Right.
And it was an amazing process. I had a great time. And there was several things that I was just really impressed with you about right out of the gate. You came in and worked with our team. It was
Right.
about, I think there was 4 of us at the time.
Which is hard working with committee.
It is hard working with a committee because everybody's got an opinion, right?
Yeah.
And graphic design is so subjective. But what I was impressed by was you listened to what everybody said. I don't really remember you taking a lot of notes, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And yet somehow you would come back to the next meeting and incorporate everything that everybody said. It was really impressive, both the memory and then the just implementation of like concepts into art. And I was really pleased with how the logo turned out. I thought it had a really historic, grounded kind of, didn't feel like ultra modern like a lot of churches,
Right.
which is not what we were going for, kind of the super hype. We were kind of looking for something a little bit more grounded,
Right.
and I thought you nailed it. So that's how I met you.
Right.
But then I said, hey, I want you to meet my son, and you gave us a tour of your facility and showed us a ton of cool stuff. And I want to talk about some of those things on the podcast, and that's why I'm really excited to introduce you to some of the viewers and listeners. But where I kind of want to start with is, what was business like when you started as a graphic designer? Did you start your business? Did you work for somebody? And what was the technology especially like when you started your very first job is in graphic design?
Well, I started doing it sort of as a part-time thing with kind of to help me go through school. So I would do different projects for people. And at that point, you conceptualized really by markers, or this is where copy goes.
Do you mind if I ask what year that was?
Yeah. I probably did my first brochure in 77, 78.
First brochure in 77 or 78.
Yeah,
So again, let's set the context before we even get into the details of the first brochure. Were personal computers even a thing when you started?
No, and it was really, it was for an advertising, a church advertising department, promotions department.
Okay.
That I did a freelance project, and so things were done with. They had somebody that had been a newspaperman, that would fly on the keys like Hunt and Peck, and so they would develop the words, the content, and I developed the concept, and so I did a couple brochures. This was in Southern California.
Okay. And so you said you talked about the markers. Was it very an artistic process? Like you would draw the brochures?
Pretty much it had to be, yeah, because I didn't have anything to do with the actual words in a sense.
Okay.
I could write them out, but that's what I'd have to do, because you didn't use typewriters. Had to, people don't even know what typewriters are anymore. But typewriters were these mechanical things that threw letters on paper, and that's how you did your papers, and that's how you did brochures. And then those things had to be taken to a phototype setter.
Okay.
And so those machines translated. Somebody had to type the stuff in, and they would make galleys, rows of type, and that type then would be pasted down on your brochure. It depends on how far into the process. If you're just on the creative side, you could just give the concept and somebody else would put it together. If you're really doing the production, then you would have to get something to be photographed.
Okay.
That's what, and if it was two colors, then you'd have to end up having different plates, so you'd put orange if you wanted a background that was going to be any color, and you put this film on. They'd copy that, and then they'd copy the words, and then the press would put them together as two plates.
That's very cool.
So that's the whole process.
I think what's interesting to me about this and about this conversation is that this is one lifetime ago, right? But when you're talking about that technology,
yep,
it's hard to imagine how many stages back that really was from where we're at today,
right,
with Photoshop and graphic design and all the tools we have today. I mean, it's just night and day different.
It is.
And I think what's interesting and kind of where I really want to take this podcast and discuss it is you're a creative. So, and again, when we work together, you're a great artist. You can get out a pencil and draw something that looks amazing, right? So you're a creative person. And before computers, you had to do all that creativity manually. And there could have felt like a threat maybe when the first PC came along, that somehow this PC was going to put creatives out of a job. And I'm curious, we haven't talked about this, but when PCs started to become popular, and that would have been, late 80s? Do you recall maybe when?
Late in the mid 80s.
Mid 80s?
Kind of I got a job in, would have been probably 89 that I was on a Mac computer.
89, Mac computer. So how did the industry feel? Artists, graphic designers, how did people feel when computers came out? Did it feel threatening at the time, or did it feel exciting?
It was a definite change. So probably everything got worse in the quality of what could be done. Because before that, you had photographers, and then you had people that took the photos and made them into mechanicals that then would go under press. So film was really better than digital.
Okay.
But where the computer started at first, so you've got the galleys with photo typesetting. That was what it was. There was no images. So as you begin to work on computers, you would put, it was sort of a process. We would put a square in for where a picture was going to be. But we could do that on a computer. And I worked at a place and we did catalogs. And we did a 150-page catalog on computers with very small screens. But we were able to have copywriters that would type out content. We would put that content into the document. We would change the sizes and adjust. So it was for me, it was a real adjustment, because I was coming from the place of, I know how to do it mechanically, but all of a sudden, I mean, I lost all my short-term memory for probably a year, where, let's go to lunch. And then 2 minutes later, it's like I've forgotten. And so somebody will call me and say, why aren't you here? Well, I just, and I was too young to lose my short-term memory. It was stress, because it was one of the hardest things I did, because really when I started doing computers, I was already 40, almost 40. So this is, there were some younger dogs that were really, really growing up in it, but I was having to take skills that I knew on just, visually and try to make it work on a computer.
Right. And then, of course, the computers were not as good as they are today.
They were very slow, didn't have any memory. You couldn't save a Photoshop file if you worked on a Photoshop file.
So they had Photoshop that early on?
The place, when I got a job in an in-house publishing company that had the Adobe products were there. So we used Photoshop, Illustrator, and we used a program called Quark Express, which Adobe developed later InDesign. But at that point, Quark Express was really good for desktop publishing. Then Photoshop was there for photos and editing and color correcting and all of those things. And then Illustrator was when you wanted to do a logo or a graphic or something. So those programs were at their beginning stages. And fortunately, everybody else, because there were 4 designers in that department. I was the oldest, but everybody was learning.
Yeah.
And so there was some mercy that and we had to do our own photos too. So at that point, it was all film. We would either hire a photographer, and they would give us film, and then we would have a square, and then that image would be put in there, or we would work with. We had a medium format camera. There was a large format camera, a 4x5 camera that would have sheet film. And so if we were shooting products, we'd have to do that and kind of learn that process.
Right.
Because there were no digital cameras at that point.
And this is what I just have like such a deep, rich appreciation for what you've done is, again, talking about the cameras, that's a whole nother world
from
what we have today. And this is what I appreciate about you is you're still in business. Now it's 2025, 2026 tomorrow. This is Happy New Year's, everybody. It's 2026 tomorrow, and your business, Art Mill, has somehow survived all these changes. You've survived as a person all these technological advances, and have grown with the industry. I mean, this honestly blows my mind because it's so much changes from the computers to the cameras to what the digital cameras to everything else. Right. So let's take a minute here and pause and let's hear more about you. So you said it was 78. You said that you started your first
actually,
job.
My first job was probably in 75. That was graphic oriented.
Okay.
I was what was called a technical illustrator.
Okay.
And it's a lot like being a draftsman. We were using pens, and so we would have to make charts and draw lines and maps with all sorts of graphics that would be used in presentations. They would have to be done with pen and ink, and we had stuff called Zipatone and it had hashing and stuff. So if we were going to do a map, it'd have to be done by cutting it all out, and then the black lines would be done pen and ink, and those would be photographed, and they would be used in presentations. There was no PowerPoints.
So then you draw it and then take a picture of it.
Right, it'd be photographed, and then they would put it on film. If it was going to be printed, some of these would be printed, some of these would be for presentation, so they would just be on slides. Okay. So that it was a whole mechanical process. So that was that's where I began, and then I got into a model shop for a while, and we were building 3D models because there's no CAD. So we actually did, cross pit conveyors that would be huge machines that they'd be designing, and we do kind of renderings for like if you're doing a building and you've got ducting and all of that, we would work with building a scale, and then you'd find out, the piping's
so
going to go here.
So I guess I'm asking here, I'm assuming when you say modeling, physical modeling with like little toys, not computer modeling.
We were cutting out pieces.
Yeah, so you're literally building a model of this. Because,
and we'd have to paint them, we'd have to fabricate this whole thing.
Because you didn't have CAD. So if you wanted, you didn't build a building on a computer first, you built it on your desk first.
Right.
And then they would have that model to come. That's amazing.
And there's no checking. I mean, if are those venting pipes going, and the water going through a different place, and people made mistakes because they would be all hand drawn.
Wow. That's interesting.
So all the engineers, everything was hand drawn.
That's pretty fun. What kind of materials did you use for the modeling? I mean, did you?
We'd spray paint things. We'd make Formica cabinets, and then because some of these would have to be shipped around to people. So we would use it, mostly it would be plastic that would be then cut out. Sometimes we would have to mold it, but it was you just have to build. One time I worked with I don't know if we bought this thing. I had to work with a dome that and paint that, and so we screen printed letters and things on stuff. It's used, so it was a real construction type.
Yeah, that sounds really that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
So architects used to have to come up with those kind of models,
Right.
And so and if an architect was going to come up with a rendering, they'd have to draw it. They'd have to be into those type of things.
Okay. So how did your career progress from there? Kind of give me the outline. Give me the story from everything you've done from that point up until Art Mill.
Well, it started out, I went to a place, it was in Southern California, and I'd actually worked in a little bit in a model shop that was doing models for movies, but I was trying to go to school too, and I didn't give them enough time, so they laid me off. And so I was trying to find a job, and I went to this one marketing company, ad agency, and I showed them I'd done a brochure or two, and then I had some drawings because I could draw and color and do things that were physical. And the person said, it looks like you got some ability, but you really, to work here, you need to go to school. So, but I really felt, oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I didn't. I want to be a graphic designer.
Okay.
I didn't know what a graphic designer was.
Right.
This was the closest I knew. So I went up and I got a degree in art. I finished a degree in art at Eastern, and still along the way I was doing brochures kind of manually and all of those things. So did it for a while and graduated from school, and then I took kind of a hiatus. We were group home house parents for a couple of years, and I was an associate pastor. I did all these things, and then I went to school. I went to Missouri to get a biblical studies degree, and when I went there, I ended up that's where I got a job I actually taught graphics in a college for a while, and that was kind of fun. I was kind of working with kids.
What year was that about?
That would have been 87.
87, okay.
It was before I went to, then I was doing all these things just for a while, and I got this job, and it was really kind of a frustrating thing because I was working in what was called layout. So before you get things to the press, you have to put them down. You've got the galleys. This was before computers. This publishing house was doing magazines, but they had a layout department and a stripping department where they'd all put these together and photographically do this, and then they had the presses. So all of that was in one place. And the new thing was the advertising department had computers. And I remember, it's like, so when I'm 40 and I had a guy come and say, do you really think you want to do this? I know how much they make there, because they were making less money in the advertising department because printing was a skill. It was a kind of a union type thing. So I took a pay cut. Had kids and a pay cut, but I figured I needed to learn this. So that was where I kind of did that and I did that for almost 5 years. So
I want to pause right there, because I think that's a really big inflection point in your story that maybe you don't even realize is that type of attitude, that type of willingness to take a risk is what I think has probably made you so robust to be able to survive all this time. Because at that moment, you could have said, hey, I'm a typesetter. I'm in the union. I've got it made. I don't want to learn new things.
Yeah.
I'm 40, 45, whatever. This is the end for me, right? And you wouldn't have made it.
Well, about a year later, they were, because what happens with technology is there's job cuts.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the people that were working where I was were scrambling to find something because that was going away. And so,
And yet you had the foresight to say, hey, I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to learn the thing that's uncomfortable. I'm going to figure out the new tool.
right.
I'm going to prioritize my personal development over necessarily what seems like the comfortable high dollar ticket. And it seems to have served you really, really well. So I think that's a kind of really, that's the nugget that I was looking for. Like, because again, I want this to be applicable to the people listening are going to be small business owners, right? And I think everybody's freaking out about AI right now.
Right.
Because AI is this new tool, and I have strong opinions about AI. I don't think AI is just going to do everything and take over every job. I think it's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's going to be like computers. It's going to be like the internet. It's going to be, I mean, going from pre-computer to computer, that's a massive change.
Right.
Going from pre-internet to internet, that's a massive change. Going from pre-AI to AI, I think that's going to be an equivalent size change.
Right.
But there's going to be people who fall behind because they're not willing to do what you did and say, hey, I need to learn this because it's the new way work is going to get done, and it's the new tool that's going to make work more efficient. And if I don't get this done, then I'm going to fall behind. I think some people are doing that. Some people are ignoring it. And then some people, I think, just have their head in the clouds and say, well, none of us are going to be working in 3 years because AI is going to do everything. And I don't buy that at all, personally.
Right.
So that's very cool that you did that. I think that's really I think that highlights a little bit of your personality and your risk taking. So what year was that approximately?
It was between 85 probably to well, actually, no, it's more 89 to 94.
Okay, then what happened after that?
So, just generally, though, one thing that was happening because of this, quality was going down in some ways, and there was the thing of, right at that point, the editors that were just before that, just really writing and keying things in. They could do just desktop publishing stuff, and so a little of what's happening now was happening then, and so the editors felt they were designers, which they weren't, and so there was a place that's needed for somebody who's a creative that makes it valid.
Right.
My folks lived out here. My family lives out here, and my folks are getting older, and so we made this crazy decision to quit the job, and move my family out here. And I thought maybe I could freelance some, and I started freelancing when I came out here. So I decided we moved the whole family. I would go around to all of the marketing companies, and there weren't very many here at that point, and all the printing companies. I went to those. And so I had these skills. I had a portfolio because I'd done brochures and magazines and ads and all of this stuff. But so I was doing some things with this printing company that was back in Missouri where I had been, but I'm trying to get situated here.
Right.
So there's no internet. So I went to different companies. There was one company, a marketing company, that they had 3 designers, and they were all pretty good. They were young. It was like this little company was like the not the Mod Squad, but like Charlie's Angels almost. They were in there. They're 3, 20-year-old, really pretty intelligent designer types and stuff. And I came to, they didn't really need me much, but I got pieces of works. And the first thing I got was a newsletter. And we had bought a computer, which was really, buy a computer was $10,000. I mean,
Right.
just for a private, us owning a small
And
little.
$10,000 then was even more than
Well, that's a
$10,000
lot of money,
now.
yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of money then.
Yeah. So anyway, but I did have a home computer, and I did have some fonts, and so I could do. I did this first newsletter. It was for a golf course here, and I got it done, and then she submitted it to a print company, and I was still going around to print companies, so I went down to a print company here. The guys that printed that, it was named Presscraft, and they were one of the good printers in the area. And I just came in the door and showed them my portfolio. I'm trying to get a job.
Right.
That's what I want. I need to support a family. It's like the money we got for selling our house is going to go away in not too many months and stuff. And we've got to, anyway, so I went in the door, and this guy's a really nice man. And he says, yeah, well, you got a good portfolio. Have you done anything locally? And it just so happened that he had that newsletter laying on his desk. So this is timing,
Yeah, it's perfect timing.
So he had just gotten a letter from the Club Pro that says, "Oh, we really appreciate the redesign of the newsletter and all of this."
Wow.
So that his next words out of his mouth, "I'm looking for a job." He says, "Do you want to go into business?" That's and that's. I mean, otherwise, I may have never gone into business.
Wow.
And it took the seed faith a little, I had just like priming the well or whatever, because we had I put $5,000 or $6,000 into starting this business, but they paid to get the programs and all of the things. They paid thousands of dollars. I mean, probably 20, 30,000, and bought all this equipment. The place where it was right then was, here is this print shop that was doing everything mechanically that all of a sudden wants to get into the digital age.
Gotcha.
And they don't know anything about how do you have a digital front end. Right. So, and people are coming with files and saying, can you do this? And they go, well, we can't, because, so I was in the right place at the right time.
That's very cool.
And, they babied me in a sense, because I wasn't productive enough, but I still offered them a service that they couldn't do.
Right.
They were still in the film and metal presses age, and so it was a good opportunity, and I started designing things, got some really good contracts with doing things, because I was sort of the only designer kind of in a print company around. And so that's kind of, I didn't want to just be a pre-press person, because I got, that would have been just like staying in doing layout. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to have an ad agency or a marketing company. And so, they allowed that. I mean, I was designing things, and this was actually a company. They didn't swallow me up into Presscraft. We actually set up a corporation. So, and
was that an art mill then?
Well, at that point, the name of my company is actually legally Whitestone Communications.
Okay.
Which was a problem, because what is that? I kind of liked that, as a name, but that's our legal name. But we've been doing business as Art Mill for about 20 years now, probably.
Okay, so again, to add some context to this story, what year was that you walked in and the magazine was on his desk and that kind of opportunity arose?
So that was 94.
That was 1994. Okay, so 32 years ago.
32 years ago.
32 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to go back to another thing you said, because again, I want to draw as much of the wisdom out of this story as possible, because there's a lot of wisdom here to unpack. The whole idea that, and you said it earlier, you said something to the degree that I think you said typesetters now thought they were designers. Was that
not the typesetters,
the copywriters,
the copywriters, the people that are editors,
the editors thought now that they were designers,
right? And which is where we are with Canva.
We are with Canva, and it hits a lot of industries, because now we have these amazing phones that have amazing cameras, or even just amazing cameras, are very accessible. I mean, you can get an incredible camera for $1,200, and everybody's a photographer, right? And like you said, Canva or all these different things, is that the fear I think people are feeling is that a tool would make the creative unnecessary, the creative person unnecessary. Right. Now, what's new about the AI age is I think it's not just creatives that are feeling that pressure anymore. I think the accountants are feeling that pressure.
Well, the accountants and the programmers.
The programmers, the lawyers. I think every industry now is starting to feel the pressure of, holy moly, this new tool is going to make me irrelevant.
Right.
And where I think that the human mind does so much better than AI or a computer is in the creative, critical thinking, problem solving. And so there's a parallel here that's really strong, that if we get threatened by the tool and say, oh, or even just say a writer. I mean, LLMs, large language models, AI, the best thing that they're good at, the thing they're better at than anything else is writing.
Right.
But
because that's what they worked at.
I still would rather read a blog written by a human than a blog written by an AI.
Right.
Because there's something about the creative human element that goes into it that sure, I would take a blog that a human wrote and AI helped tweak, modify, polish, that's fine. But I still think there's something really substantial to the human input. And again, why this is so interesting, such an interesting conversation to me, is that I think you in the creative space have gone through this 2 or 3 times. Now, everybody else is going through it for the first time with AI, but you personally have gone through it 2 or 3 times with creatives. And again, you still had to have creative people doing creative things, especially to perform at the top levels, right? Because we can make some pretty good stuff with Canva. I mean, that's fine. But if you want top level professional quality graphic design, you still need a human, an artsy person going in and making that thing.
Right.
And I just personally think that's going to be true across the board. But I think the other part of this part of the story that strikes me is, you were the guy, again, that added value because you were willing to go on the edge and figure out how can we do these tools. So you had this print company, and again, you said you weren't the most busy guy there, or that you weren't doing everything, but you were the one that was on the edge figuring out the new stuff and providing a whole new door to all the opportunities.
Well, I was busy, but I was not productive per se.
Okay.
Because technology, when you're learning and I'm more of a creative than a technocrat.
Okay.
So somebody who's really technical can get things done and learn a system. And I can't find the same way to get home twice in a row in a car because it's boring. I'm always kind of, that's the way my mind works.
Right.
So in that, and we ended up hiring somebody when I was working at Presscraft to do more of the output that was more. He could just do it, and I got to be more creative and continue to work that.
Okay, so that was 1994. This is now we're getting into years that I recall. And I'm old enough. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember 1994. And I think we got internet in our house. I want to say 1994 or 1995.
Right.
I mean, early 90s. Not everybody had internet. I don't even know I'm sure it was around in the early 90s, but I remember, like I said, I think it was 94, 95 that we got the internet.
Right.
And not all of my friends had it. And it was kind of a big deal, right? The internet was a new thing. So that was also right around the time you started your business. Internet was just starting.
Yeah.
Emails were just starting to be a thing. Tell me about how the internet changed the graphic design industry.
One of my problems is that I always rejected coding.
Okay.
I didn't want to learn HTML. And probably I could have been or if I would have hired that skill more than I did, but that I probably could have been more productive or done better. But it's like I just didn't want to program. I mean, I still don't want to program, and I've always been able to work kind of visually or with these programs that I can see. I don't have to get into the code much. Now I do a little bit, but very little.
Well, your company does websites. That's a big part of what you do, right?
Our company does websites. So right away, and I had a guy that was just a genius that came in, and there was one place that was doing websites in town, really old school, very old school. And this guy told me, you need to get into this because, you just take over the whole city or the whole area. But so we started doing websites, and I'd find people that could do. We're doing web. Like I hired one guy that had been worked for a local company, IT company, and he helped me for a while. And my son Paul ended up being one of my first graphic designers, and in the website. So because we'd have to develop a website and stuff, but because I wasn't progressive enough, there were a lot of them, a lot of things, bigger sites that I couldn't do. So somebody would hire somebody else, or so I got behind a little bit on that. But we always did websites, and then I hired somebody that really just was a coder, and I realized graphic design is becoming more and more a part of web. It's less HTML looking, but the guy I had working for me couldn't do that, so I had to really learn visually how to tell him to make a website that looked good. So I'd have to do mock-ups or just boards that would show kind of visually. I'm back to what I was doing originally with brochures,
right.
Mocking it up, and then making him realize, okay, the type style needs to look like this, and so I got over my fear of just the medium of web, and after that, I mean, we started. I got a guy that had been programming websites for car dealers, and he wanted to stop doing that. He wanted a job, and so I hired him, and he worked for me probably 6 or 8 years, and really, while he was there. He was very talented, and he was also had an artistic eye, and we kind of the art mill really grew during that period to where now we're hosting over 100 sites and maintaining those sites and developing them, and so that's become very much a part of what our business is.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because there's the way the website functions and the way the website looks.
Right.
And those two things are not necessarily the same.
Right.
And a lot of times, you talked about coding. Coding is more of an analytical thing. And a lot of times, analytical people are not the most creative, right? So you kind of got to marry those two things together and say, I'm going to do this design layout, which is right up the graphic design alley, and then I'm going to hire the right people to do the technical side, and then I'm going to put them together and make a functional and beautiful website, right?
But I think creativity has always been like that. It went through my head. You think of Michelangelo. Well, Michelangelo is this great creative, great painter and all these things. Well, he had to work in stone.
Right.
Do you know how hard it is to conceptualize and work in stone? That's a very technical thing to find a piece of, find a Madonna or what, or the Pietà, to find this image inside of a piece of rock. I mean,
Right.
it's so I think there's always this technical side. But,
Yeah, that's
but
true. The
creative
medium.
then that's where I think, kind of when we compare ourselves with other people doing web design, we offer the creative but I think web is developing so much in other areas that the focus, what is the website about? Where do you want people to go? There's sophistication that's happening that doesn't just happen from a programmer can't do that. And in some ways, a creative that just makes things pretty can't have it. Now, and that's a place where you get into AI, is all of a sudden you can say, if I want people, these are my issues that I want in this website. How do I structure the content, the bare bones of this thing to look so that people will go to the place in this website that I want them to go? And so I think then AI becomes a tool.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that. So talk to me about the competitive landscape change from 1994 to 2026. We're talking about a 32-year time frame, because you said a minute ago, in the early days, there wasn't a lot of website designers. There wasn't a lot of graphic people. You're kind of one of the only shows in town. I would look around today and say there's a lot.
Right.
The market has just expanded.
Right.
But as a small business owner, how did you stay competitive? How did you stay cutting edge? What did you do as more companies and freelancers entered the space? Tell me about that kind of over the last 30 years, what that's been like for you.
Well, I had to. So there was a point where I really wanted to be independent. Wanted to pull out of just being. I didn't want to be a print company.
Okay.
Although I brought into the print company, and that ended up being a disaster because print has kind of died in some ways. So I got into to try to be competitive. One of the things, looking at technology, so all of a sudden we have digital printing. I mean, I had my first copier, which was, it was really expensive, and it didn't work great. I had my first large format printer.
So again, I got to ask, let's put some dates on some of these things. Do you recall approximately when you had your first copier and when you had your first large digital printer?
See, color, laser printers were really expensive when they came to be color. So back then, you could pay $20,000 for an 8.5 by 11 color printer.
Wow.
I mean, they were really expensive. And then Canon developed, as Xerox is making machines, Canon had, I think, that was the first one we bought, that I think it did 11 by 17 sheets.
Okay.
And toner, and so you could send a digital file over. Things were slow. Internet was slower. I mean, that's before fiber. I mean, it's like that. But and then it didn't work great. It was a long story. You couldn't put out too many posters because it would be really hot and they'd fuse together. And I mean, it was something. It was outside of the norm of what the print company, which was just ink on paper with presses.
Right.
And so I started doing that, and I got a large format printer, and you can get laminators and stuff. So I tried all of that. And then I bought into the print company. I could keep because there were two businesses, I could keep my business going. But print company was really having problems. It was not whatever I could do. I would try to downsize and take privileges away or benefits away. But they decided that I was trying to mess them over. So they brought in somebody else. And so I had to let them buy me out of the company. And it was kind of a depressing time. So I was, I was paying, it's like, here I am, 45 or whatever, and I'm going to spend the next, the rest of my life paying off the money I owe from buying into the company. Now I've got to get out of there. So, certain things happened. I ended up doing a Spanish Yellow Pages. There were kind of provisions, and then we just took the business and we moved out on our own. So I think that gave us more visibility. That's one of the things we did, and then we got better copy machines. So I always thought that to try to work in the market, I'd need to, I never was just a graphic designer or whatever. I got this technical thing. So I thought adding to, I don't think myself the best graphic designer out of that. I mean, there's geniuses, that that are just super creative, but not every super creative is able to have a business. So, but the digital copies, really, we bought printers and we would do that, and they're for proofing, but they, that image quality keeps improving. So we would do that, and we would, I had digital cameras, so we would do some of our own photography. We brought a scanner because still using film, you scan things, and we're still doing some of that, but mostly we scan prints now. But so a scanner is just a flatbed thing that copies that, and then you turn it into a digital piece.
Right.
So we've done that. We've done the large format. I could have gone into doing graphics, sign graphics, and I really didn't want to. I mean, you got to train somebody. I made decisions, right or wrong, that I don't want to go there.
Right.
But we've done a lot of printing where we design, and then we go to larger printers around, like in other areas, because we don't have any really printers in this area that can have that have the good presses, larger presses, because some things can't be done digitally. But we do a lot of things internally digitally, and that's off our copy machine. And so we've got a little small print shop. That's one of our legs of our stool. Print brokering is another thing we've done, and then we do some large format, and then we have the graphic design and web. So there's in order to stay in this market, I've kind of done diversity, and the web has really definitely become very much a part, and our hosting of websites is a part of all of that. Where things are going, I mean, I think we're at a place where that we'll have to see. I mean, there are things. People are using more. Everybody can go to print companies in other places. If I can do this on Canva and I can put this to pour over or something, I mean, that is affecting the market.
Sure.
So we always tried to be a design company.
Right.
So I've never to be the cheapest price, trying to do good value. And so I think that is, where we still are, is trying to produce value and work with clients that really their best thing isn't to try to be a designer and do it on their own.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think seems to be a common thread is that you've always been a graphic designer first.
Right.
You've been a creative first that then says, what is the tool of the day? And again, over these last 50 years, there's been a lot of tools, and some of them have come and gone.
Right.
But the core service, the core creative human input of graphic design hasn't changed.
Right.
And I think that's pretty neat. So let's get into the AI conversation a little bit. I think most people would say AI has really been around at this point for about 3 years. Obviously, there was earlier versions of it,
right,
but these large language models in their earliest kind of public forms was about 3 years ago.
Right.
And I already know, I mean, I'm not a graphic designer, but I think, a lot of Canva or Gemini is creating images.
And Adobe is
doing it as well, right? So how has AI affected the graphic design? I mean, obviously we don't need graphic designers anymore, right? Because AI can do it better.
Well, yes, yes and no. And it's amazing, especially when now that we're in the graphic side, that you can have. I mean, you can have a Coke commercial that is called kind of all AI. I mean, all of this matters what is put in, and so these are language based.
I was kidding, by the way. I don't think that's true at all. That we don't need graphic designers. Yeah.
But that is a philosophy. I mean, people. I mean, when economies, it's like when economy is poor, you might just have one pair of shoes. And I think when businesses are struggling, they might decide that, well, we can do this all internally. We can do our own marketing. We can do our own advertising. And I think the economy, the way it's been lately, has created some of those fears. And then it's a newness, because we're at this newness stage. But there are so many options. We are seeing the thing with AI of like you have a conversation and the AI will look at the whole conversation, and then instead of writing out a brief and saying this is what we're doing, and it can organize that, and so language-wise, there's lots of advantages, and we are using it like in websites to develop how it goes. Visually, it is, you aren't getting anything specifically that's original, which is really interesting. I mean, you're going to see things that wow you, especially in the visual thing, especially for me, who knows, has tried to paint, has known really good illustrators, and some of the things are amazing. And you can design, if you know what to input, and come up with a good poster. It's going to look like other things, but you can do that. Now, is it the best use of somebody who isn't a graphic designer's time to do that? And maybe a good programmer who's got a good eye. That's maybe a good use of their time. But the average business owner, I still think that you're going to get this, you're going to get a sameness. You're going to get a mediocrity because there is not the same creativity in computers, because they're just regurgitating.
Right.
I mean, they do some things well, especially language-wise, but there's things that they can't come up with. You lose the personal. You lose, and there is a thing that this looks like another AI thing or another AI thing.
Yeah, I would say the analogy, we already kind of used it, is just because I have an expensive camera doesn't mean I'm going to take great pictures.
You're not a photographer.
I'm not a photographer. And I think just because you have a great AI tool that can do some amazing graphics doesn't mean you're going to produce great graphics.
Right.
Now, again, you take out your iPhone and you take a picture, it's going to be good, because
the quality is really good.
But there's a layer and a level above that. When you put the right tool in the right person's hand, it's just so much better. It doesn't matter how great the tool is. If it's not in the right person's hand, the tool can only go so far. And again, I think there's a big debate going on right now, because people are saying, well, that's just because AI isn't developed enough.
Right.
I don't buy that. I think that it's never going to develop past the point where it can replace that human ingenuity and creativity. The tool will get better. I'm not saying AI won't get better, but it's always going to be a tool in the hand of a human is how I'm seeing the world develop.
And so what is the programmer behind the tool? And,
yes.
And so do you get into the ethics of this whole thing? I mean, at this point, and there already are lawsuits going on.
Sure.
Because AI, I mean, I remember back in the day, there was a photograph of an Indian that, I don't know, it was Sitting Bull or something, and somebody used that and made a piece of art with it. And I think the rights to that thing maybe belonged to an Indian nation or something, and he used that to develop this. He got sued and he lost.
Wow.
Right now, and I had a project where I did an AI thing where this person wanted, it was like a turkey or whatever driving an ATV. And so it's like one of my first rendezvous into this thing. And it came out with something that, there's different ones all looked usable, but where did they get that? And did somebody originally design that and they just stole it?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's okay in a little thing, but what happens if you do this on a major project?
And it's a big philosophical debate, because on some level, what they want to argue, at least anyways, is that we all are stealing things all the time.
Right.
How did you learn to draw? By looking at other drawings, by looking at other paintings, right? I mean, and we would say, because that's kind of the philosophy of a large language model, is it's kind of predictive based on all the inputs that I have, what should go next.
Right.
But again, I think there's some human quality that still allows us to be creative, even if we're taking inspiration from something else. And that word inspiration is what's interesting to me, because I don't think AI ever takes inspiration from something else. It's taking modified copies.
Right.
Where a human, I think, still has the ability to be inspired by another piece of art or inspired by a style. So yeah, courts and everybody else can sort that out. And I mean, and this is hitting all the creative industries the same. Music is a big one too, because there's a lot of AI music right now.
Right. I mean, yeah, and some of these things become, a fake person, and people listen to them.
The deep fakes. I mean, you could I could replace you with Joe Rogan, and then we could have his voice, and we could be having a conversation with Joe Rogan, and AI would do a pretty good job on that.
It's not quite there, but where's it going to be a
few more years?
And so it's an interesting place we are. I mean, this is maybe a different paradigm shift, and we'll see how we make it through this next rendition. But we've got this place where humans are different than machines. If machine is doing certain things, I mean, it depends on what's been programmed in there, and what is the end result going to be. And we, there's what is the morality of the person that's programming, and that's those are those fears. I mean, what are you getting? You're going to get an impression if you ask something about what is a conservative or what is a liberal.
Sure.
It's going to, your model is going to be based, you're going to get information. You got to be careful of what is the source, and where has this thing just chosen to lie because it can.
Yeah.
And, and so lawyers have to be very careful, because that wasn't really a court case. It just made it up. There's no ethics there.
And of course, I think we've all dabbled with AI a little bit. I've found my best use of AI as a tool is if I do a lot of the work first. So like, let's say I want to create some content that I want to put on the internet, post a video or an outline, or even say an outline for a sermon or a presentation, right? If I do a lot of the thinking myself first.
Here's where I want to go, and this is what it's about.
Yeah, and kind of create my own outline, and then put it into AI and say, hey, what do you think about this? It will give me a lot better feedback and say, oh, well, this is pretty strong, but maybe it's missing this. Or, this might be a better word, because I think that word carries connotations you're not thinking about.
Right.
Works great for that. But if I just go blank and say, hey, I want to do a presentation about, marginal change in economic data, and then let it pump it out, it's going to be garbage. It just always is.
And where's it going to go? It's not going to go where you want it to go specifically.
It's going to copy somebody else's ideas, maybe modify it. It's not going to follow my train of thought. And I mean, it doesn't end up being the best use of the tool. And so I think it's got its place. It's got its place in my businesses, in my life. But it's a tool. It's not replacing anything. I think where I want to kind of get to here, where as we get close to wrapping up, is just really practical. Your business, I've been in there. It's a successful business. You got employees. You got good equipment. You're doing well, and I've seen you weather lots of storms and technology changes and competition and all this stuff. So, what advice would you have for a young business owner as AI is entering the market, as competition's getting fierce? Just what advice would you give? And it could be anything. What advice would you give a small business owner that wants to stay competitive and be in it for the long haul?
So this is any kind of business. This is not specifically a graphic design business.
We could do both. Let's start with what advice would you give a young graphic designer, somebody starting out in the business? And then let's go broad and say, what advice would you give just any business owner?
Well, I'm always, one of the things that I've always thought is really important is to look and to kind of the thing of a photographer. And you can train to be a better photographer. But if you really do have a gift and talent in a direction, don't just, well, I'm great. Train that. So develop a portfolio. For somebody coming into us, the person that's going to get the job is going to be somebody who has proven that they can do things that are on the quality that I would think, that they've got a mind and they've got abilities. So there's skills and there's just visual aptitude. You can't, it's like a musician.
Right.
You can be technical, but unless you've got a musical aptitude, it's like, it's going to sound like a machine almost.
Yeah.
Because there is not the human side of it. So I think that's really, learn tools, but I can continue. And that was the thing that I enjoyed about the project we did. It's like, most of the time, or a lot of time, I just end up shooting from the hip, and I get on a computer and take some type and move it around, and that's what I can do because you get used to that. Well, the tool gets in the way. I think the tool doesn't allow you to be as creative as you can be necessarily. So the fact that you can just do something doesn't mean that you're creative.
Right.
And but if you train yourself visually, I think it's still important to draw. It's still important to understand medium and color and all of those things. So that I would say in a graphic design setting, and it really, go to an art school. Don't necessarily go to a college, but go to an art school or spend a year or two just, like Charlie Kirk would say, just educate yourself.
Right.
Spend some time learning and learn from the best, or go to some seminars or something. There's ways to self-educate that are in. We've got all of these tools now available to us. So this is there are things that can be done. There's training things and so. But you've got to be really interested, and I think that really figures into business too. Do you just want a job, or do you have a passion? Do you have interest? Are you willing to self-educate? Are you willing to put in extra time? There was a lot of times that I was, in order to keep it afloat. I mean, my time. It wasn't the greatest thing for being a husband because self-employment isn't isn't a wonderful thing sometimes.
Sure.
But at times it means you just you have to not get a check when everybody else does. I mean, and I've been very fortunate to have employees that I've had over a long period of time. Some people have employment things where everybody's changing and stuff. It's really good to have valuable employees, trust, and things are hard. I mean, you've got to realize that if you've got a vision, it's not going to happen maybe in the first week. It's not going to happen maybe in the first year. But be prepared. Have enough capital. How many restaurants go bust in the first year?
Right.
How many businesses don't make it past a year or 3 years? Because, I mean, don't overspend. Don't go into debt very much. I mean, some debt is necessary if you're going to have this, you're going to be able to produce this, you need to buy this machine. But it's really easy to spend money that you haven't earned.
Right. Isn't that funny? And it's easier than ever right now to spend money you haven't earned. So I'm hearing you say, number one, be a lifetime learner.
Yeah.
If you're going to survive business, you're going to survive technology, be curious, be learning.
Right.
And be prepared. Make plans, plan for change, and be ready for the ups and downs. Is there anything else you would tag on the end to a young entrepreneur, somebody in their 30s or 40s who's just getting started and wants to make it as long as you made it?
Well, this would go to a Christian specifically, but it might, I don't know if God listens to non-Christians, but I'd say pray. The first guy I worked for that I ended up buying Art Mill from, his thing was I would say, well, what do you do when you don't have any work? And he said, I pray.
Wow.
And I've told that to a number of employees. Some employees, they kind of go, "Whoa, you mean you don't have this kind of a plan?" That is a plan in a sense. It's like, so I'm sensitive to impressions. I mean, I'm sensitive to opportunities. God can open doors. That I cannot force open.
Right.
And so sometimes we just need wisdom from above. And that's, I think that's, in inspiration as a creative, I really think the greatest creative of all, the great designer is God. So, it's not that God doesn't want us to be creative. So it's, I think entrepreneurs are it's a good thing, but you're getting out of just buying a job. You don't want to just, you can do things just to get money, buy a franchise, but is there a passion for it? I mean, do you, maybe for somebody who's really got a business passion, buying into McDonald's would be a good thing. But if it's just a burden and you're just having everybody else do it, and it's like, I don't really want to be here, it's probably not the good place to be. Mm-hmm. So know your temperament, know yourself.
That's good. I think that's a perfect way to wrap it up. I appreciate you doing this, Dennis, a lot. That was really, really insightful. So if people wanted to look you up or look up Art Mill, what would be the best way for them to find you?
Artmill.com, ARTMIL.com.
Artmill.com, ARTMIL.com.
Yeah, there is somebody that after us took an Art Mill with 2 L's, but
oh boy,
and we get calls from them. And they're on the East Coast and stuff, and they're somewhat similar, but it's not us.
Okay,
but Art Mill 6 letters,
1 L, fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Okay,
and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thank you. Thanks for checking out this podcast. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content, please like, comment, subscribe. As you've heard from everybody on the internet, it really helps us out as content creators. We do have a live event coming up January 29th. I'd love for you to check it out. It's going to be in Kennewick, Washington at the HBA office, 2:30 to 3:30, January 29th, and it's going to be about small business finance. This is not theoretical, it's practical. You're going to walk away with great tips and understanding of what you should be looking at as a small business owner regarding your finances. Because I can tell you the majority of small business owners I work with are looking at the complete wrong things when it comes to small business finance. I'd love to see you there.